Hi guys, this is Ronnie Fernandez, LCSW, and I'm here with Miguel Chavez, a fellow MSW, fellow clinician, therapist, and me and Miguel, we first met when we worked at a previous agency, and we kind of hit it off. And I just thought it would be good to have a discussion on like men's mental health, but also as a clinician and also as just as a guy, trying to, and our first kind of experiences with therapy and so on, kind of understand how difficult how difficult trying to find a therapist is, and the whole stigma around mental health. So, Miguel, can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you? And you can tell us a little bit about you.
Let's see. Well, I'm a Latino, Spanish speaking. My parents are from Mexico. They were born and raised in Zacatecas. They came here with a visa, and then they stayed. They didn't go back, and they applied for residency here. And yeah, I have. I was raised for the first about 7 years of my life in Watts. So my dad he bought a house in Watts. I think it was like $20,000 when he first bought it in like the late
Wow.
'70s. Yeah, and I was like, Dad, why'd you buy a house in Watts? and, and he said, because of the price. It was a good
Yeah.
price.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So raised in Watts, and then from there we moved to South LA. And that's like South LA is weird because like now it used to be called South Central and then South LA, and now there's all these little districts. So now the area that I grew up in is called Firestone Park or Florence District. It's in that area right there. So yeah, so I grew up there, and then I went to college. you know, I survived the hood, and then I went to college, and then I decided, you know what, like what do I want to do? When I first started going to college, I majored in psychology, and then when I got my bachelor's, I was like, I don't really want to do a master's in psychology, which was disappointing to some of my peers,
Yeah.
but whatever. So I went into a social work program, and then from there, earned a master's degree in social work, and yeah, and then have 10 years of experience working doing individual therapy, yeah, and school based, as well as in the home, for nonprofits, and now right now I'm working in private practice, so doing victims of crime. So I do take victims of crime cases.
Wow. Yeah, man. I mean, and I just thought it would be just such a really great conversation, and it's just a different perspective, where we don't come off as like, oh, we're professionals and we know you know what to do. It's like, no, we're kind of trying to figure this out too, and we've had experiences that a lot of people might have. So, and I kind of want to hear about your first experience with therapy, man, and how that went.
Oh, let's see. So the first time I think I was 19 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was 19 years old and I was in community college. So I went to El Camino and they say it's 2 years, but it's never 2 years. Well,
Yeah.
it wasn't 2 years. It was like
Yeah.
2.5, and then it turned into three.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, three. So I was at Elco. Great school. I really liked it. I like going to El Camino. And during that time, so to give you some context around why I ended up going to seek it, um, so it was my oldest brother. So my oldest brother, he suffers from schizophrenia, and it's like this paranoid schizophrenia. So I guess depending on the episode or what the symptoms look like, he could be diagnosed with either paranoid schizophrenia or like bipolar with psychosis.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's like it could look like mania, but then you have this complete psychosis going on here, where he
Wow.
like thinks of stuff that like thinks that you did something or the people are after him. It's a sense of paranoia.
Yeah.
And so during that time, and we had seen my brother develop into like multiple illnesses when I was in high school. This was like 11th grade. My brother showed signs of like OCD and like deep, what is it like? So it was like a really deep phase of depression that he went to. It was major depression.
Hmm.
So from there, it started progressing because he started, doing substances
Yeah.
to take care of himself.
Yeah. You
You
see that
know,
a lot. Yeah.
yeah. So he did do a lot of that, and so it was around that time when I was like 19, and I was going to community college where his episodes were getting very very aggressive towards family members. So he had, it was physical aggression towards like he even hit my mom, my dad as well, left stitches on my dad's face. And
Wow.
so it was like this really, really tense environment that was like, I had to go to school, like I'm studying. But then when I get
Yeah.
home, I got this, my oldest brother who's he has a large frame, and and he's telling me accusing me of all these things, and he's angry about it, and he wants to fight me, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got into a physical fight. Another time I'll tell you the details around that fight because that in itself can be traumatic for people to listen to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we got into a fight, and then that's when I realized, you know what, like I'm not well. Like my mind, I'm like I was very tense,
Yeah.
all my muscles, and I didn't even feel like studying. And I got to this period where me harming someone else was something that had never really crossed my mind.
Wow.
And to top it off is like your own blood, your own
Yeah.
brother, someone that you looked up to, someone that you care about, someone that you love. And here you are, you're having these really dark thoughts about hurting someone that you love,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I was like, man, like I need to go see somebody. And I
Yeah.
knew that the student health services provided about, I think it was like 6 or 7 sessions that were free. It was based on the fee that I think we paid like a student health services fee. So I went to the website and I saw that I could make an appointment. And before that, I had never thought about going. But this one was like I was at this point where, like, I guess physical aggression or the risk of violence was
Mm,
really high for
yeah.
me towards other people, me being a perpetrator of aggression. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized, you know what, I need some help. So yeah, I went in. I went in for my first time at El Camino College.
Wow. And how was that experience?
So it was, before going in, there was this, my family had always had this idea of, like, if you're crazy, those are the people that go seek therapy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we had out in it was, I suppose that was also perpetrated in our family because my older brother was mentally ill, and we thought, okay, he's the one that needs the help, I don't need the help.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that part that, even though we're going through all this trauma, and these
Yeah.
experiences, yeah, we don't think like, oh, we need some help.
Yeah.
Yeah, you start telling, no, oh, he needs some help.
Yeah.
But you don't
Yeah.
think that you need help until you
Yeah.
until you reach your peak. So for me, the peak was, you know, I felt like, committing violence against another individual.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I need to go see somebody. So it was so before I went in, I didn't, obviously, male supply, the supply of male therapists is not very high.
Yeah.
And so I got a female therapist. It was a white lady. And yeah, I was very nervous the first time I went in, but it felt really good because it was the first time that I spoke to someone who was outside of the family
Yeah.
that that could, mm, that could really, like, listen to me, and at the same time, like, I never had that, never had
Yeah.
that, because it was always like my mom. My mom was like my go-to person all the time. And
Yeah.
so it was like, okay, now we have this professional, but I also had this sense of hope because I had this, as a young Latino from the hood, you have this kind of misconception, or maybe like a bias that the white folks are going to help you with, they know more, they're more educated, more
Yeah.
resources,
Yeah.
whatever, that the help was going to come, and I was like, let's
Yeah.
go. Yeah, so it was good. It felt good to get a lot off my chest. I talked about, that incident that I had with my brother. I talked about my brother's history, and I went back a few more times too. And after that first one, it felt really good. Like, I was still tense, but at the same time, there was a follow-up meeting, so that made me feel good too. Because I was
Yeah.
like, okay, now I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna see her again. Um, but as the sessions progressed, like, my level of the level of aggression or the level of intensity that I was feeling had gone down. So there was also this side of, like, me telling myself, oh, I don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
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 So ultimately, it was really up to me to cut off the sessions. I think I cut it off at like session number 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
So,
think sometimes we think that we're going to be in therapy for years, and especially with myself, like, I try to get people out. I mean, not as soon as possible, but just, it's always my goal is to transition them out, and not having professional services. And yeah, I mean, just, I mean, it's wow. And And how was that experience? I mean, going down, you know, you're done with it. Did you go back, or did you feel like it was a, looking back, was it that a good experience as far as like having only four sessions, or do you think that you should have went more, or?
Well, the expectations around what I wanted to get out of it were also kind of like unknown. I didn't
Mm,
know. I didn't
yeah,
know. It's like I'm walking in, but I don't know what I'm gonna get out of it. I don't know like where is that end point. You know, it's like you start, but then where's the end point? Even for therapists, that's also sometimes difficult to identify, to define. So for me, it was the how do you say, the physiological effects of like that tension and that kind of shakiness and that anxiety that was really high. For me, that was the defining factor. It's like if that dissipates, then maybe I don't need this anymore. That was, that's my ignorance too. Going in there
yeah,
because I'm like, yeah, I don't need this anymore.
yeah,
Yeah, which I really did, but there was also this limit too of the number of sessions. You know.
yeah.
Yeah,
How,
so I was like, I knew I had to cut it off, and then the advice that was coming my way was also not what I expected. So I was surprised as well, because keep in mind, so at that age, I'm like 19. So there in right here in America, there's this idea that after 18 that you're going to be independent. You can do anything you want. So there was also this kind of energy that I was feeling from the therapist saying that like, hey, you're an adult. Why don't you just move out and let your parents deal with those problems? You know?
huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that was
yeah,
hard to swallow. Yeah,
yeah. That, wow.
yeah. And she wasn't the only one. She wasn't the only one. There were other people, other mental health professionals, like even a psychiatrist that I had spoken to around that time because I was looking for help.
Yeah,
Not just for me, but it was like I wanted to help my brother. I wanted to help my family. Like I'm not gonna abandon my family. Like my family across the border. And it's like
yeah.
and they work hard, and I love my family, and I'm not just gonna abandon my family because I'm 19 and I could. And
Do you
so
think do you think it was a cultural thing?
definitely there's a clash of cultures. Yeah, yeah, because they didn't understand that I was gonna stay. It was like, and I had a younger sister, so she was like 4 or 5 years younger than me,
Yeah.
and I knew that my sister, like, I needed to be there for her and to protect her as well, and
Hmm.
to kind of try to like, make the situation better, not just for myself, but for the rest of my family and for my brother as well.
Yeah, because I think I mean I know now that we it's kind of drained into us, that we need to be more, we need to have like be aware of culture and how that works. Because I don't think now, I'm hoping that wouldn't happen, right? I mean, I know that.
Still can though, let's be real.
Yeah, no, especially when especially you have somebody that's kind of like only psychotherapy, and they're gonna sit down and assess you and like, okay, this is what you got to do. Because I mean, I think it's easy to say, like, once you see something on paper, you kind of know, okay, to get better, you need to do this, this, and this. But but the work part is how you're gonna get there, right? I mean,
Right.
I think pretty much the first day you can kind of like, okay, you need to do this, but but you know what I'm saying, like, but there's a whole journey in the middle of that. You know what
Oh
I'm
yeah,
saying?
that wasn't gonna happen in my free sessions, in
Yeah.
my 6%. And I think that was the part that was lacking because I didn't really gain any insight into like myself or even me as a client. It was always I walked in with that perspective of my brother's the client, my brother's the one who needs the help.
Mm,
It's like not me. I'm here to help my brother.
yeah.
But I didn't also get that reflection of like could it be that that you're also traumatized from this? Do you
Mm,
have anxiety? Is there depression that comes? And those are things that at that in my first time it wasn't explored or it wasn't something that even that was coming out. So for me, after that, I was fine, right? after my 4 sessions, I was like, I don't need therapy anymore. It's like,
yeah.
yeah,
Especially after such a traumatic experience. I mean, now, I mean, I'm pretty sure like back then you're probably like, oh, it's just I got in a fight with my brother. But as a professional, you kind of see like, wow, how much of an impact that had on you.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, looking back, I mean, and it was deeper than that because even the area, the socioeconomic status area that I came from, was also had very high rates of violence. Like, I saw like gang members getting coordinated into the gang right in front of my yard. There were shootings that were also taking place because the neighbors that was a location for one of the headquarters of one of the gangs. And
Yeah.
so the opposing gang members would swing by and shoot, and they're not always gonna aim like directly only at that one house. It's usually maybe before and also after. And so when we had moved into the house, we knew there were some dangers moving into the house. We saw some bullet holes that were patched up in the wall.
Yeah.
So coming from an environment like that, that you look back and you're like, wow, like
Yeah.
it didn't start with my brother. Like
Yeah.
it was way before that.
Yeah, and it's no, and for for people that come from the same kind of background, man, that stuff kind of seem kind of normal. Like, oh, that's just kind of the way it is, and oh, it's not, and we don't really see how it brings that irritability. It brings those symptoms of depression, it kind of teaches us to violence is the way you deal with things, and we I think we find out later, like, no, there's so many things that that you can do outside of violence, outside of intimidation, that kind of stuff, and learning new skills, especially when you go out of your environment, especially to college, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah, it's a different environment because when you step out of that environment, and then you go to like a college environment, which is more peaceful. You do feel safe. There is a completely different thing that you have to adapt to that new environment, and that's not
Yeah.
easy to adapt to when you're coming from
No.
people that are using like the N words as just as the Latinos, talking to themselves. My friends, we would all use N words to talk to each other,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was those were things, and looking back, there was a lot of racism too that was ingrained into the messages or the songs or even rhymes that
Yeah.
from when we were children, growing up in those environments.
Yeah, and even like one thing I found out is like even eye contact, right? I mean, I,
Yeah,
I remember like navigating through East LA, man. I mean, my head was down the whole time when I was walking, in the streets and stuff like that. And then if I knew that somebody wanted my attention, I knew like, okay, I had the posture up, and then if they become a little more aggressive, I know I need to smile, like, hey, So I knew like the whole kind of routine to kind of get me out of that. But when you go to college and that friendly environment, you can't walk around with your head down, or when you talk to, one of your professors or something like that, you can't, because it comes off as weak. It comes off as like not caring. And even at, when you grow up and to become more professional, where you need to have that good, a good handshake and the eye contact. But yeah, that adjustment is difficult.
yeah. So I was thinking about that session, and it was the first time that I went to therapy, and then I really needed more therapy looking
Hmm.
back.
Yeah.
So that wasn't enough, but I didn't know that at the time. So I just continued up. My goal was I needed to get through college because when I was in high school, that's what the teachers were all saying. You got to go to college. You got to go to college. You got to graduate, get a degree. And so that was it. I was on this path where like nothing was gonna stop me. I was going, I was going to college, and so after El Camino, I went to Cal State Dominguez Hills, and there were more episodes that my brother had. Aside from that, it didn't. I mean, obviously, my brother's mental illness didn't stop when my therapy services stopped. And
Yeah.
so all throughout my college years, I had to kind of balance that stress of my brother getting 5150'd, probably easily more than a dozen times in his life. And this is all throughout my college life. And I was a part of some of
Wow.
those because I had to communicate with the people on the phone. And so I was doing the calls to the pet team and that.
Yeah, so a lot of stuff going on between you and your brother, and how. Yeah, you're right, man. Four sessions is not gonna is not gonna do much,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
No,
maybe
not because,
shift your
not only because of
perspective,
that,
but
but then you got to think, I go back to the same environment, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Wow.
I was still, gung ho. I'm going to college, and I did, and I lived at home. Financially, it worked out. I was on, financial aid during the whole time. All the years that I went through college, except for grad school, there's no, the financial aid isn't free. That's what I mean by financial aid. It wasn't a
Yeah,
loan. Yeah.
yeah,
So when I went to grad school, my brother was still going through these phases in and out of, these rehab centers. There was domestic violence still. It was still happening at home, but a little bit less, because he started getting older as well.
yeah.
So yeah, and at the same time, my brother was also releasing a lot of I would say internal turmoil, like these really, yeah, a lot of stuff that because he was abused physically, and so I think a lot of that was part of his release from his experiences. And so yeah, going through college, I was like, it was like this experience of like, have health insurance, insurance, you know?
Uh-huh.
And then at the same time, I knew that the college experience was only going to be a few sessions. So I was like in grad school, and I knew I could get a few sessions, but there was never this really opportunity to get a full therapy, like even psychiatry at that point either, because that wasn't even a topic when I went in for at El Camino or anything like that, you know,
Yeah.
for myself. Yeah. So I mean, so I went through all these years because, you know, I didn't have health insurance. I was already like phased out of my dad's health insurance. And then at the same time, the universities, I knew it was only a few sessions. So there was a part of me that didn't want those few sessions because I didn't want to be disappointed with it because it
Mm.
was the first time.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that first time, the disappointment of like, hey, you need to move out, you know, let your family take care of these problems. That also kind of like, it
Leave you
really had an
know.
impact on me. I
Yeah.
probably subconsciously, I didn't want to go back to hear that same message, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting how they just wow. Yeah, because I would have think, and maybe because those are short term, was it what they call short term
Right? Short term, yeah, solution focus. Just, you
solution
know,
focus. There
here's
we
the
go.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, here
Problem.
you go.
Here's
There
the
you go.
solution.
Boom. And I think that's like I was saying, like I think that's easy to do. Like you can kind of see what the issues are, but you kind of need that guidance through it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not just gonna be solved. Like just because you know the answer doesn't mean you know everything's gonna get fixed. It's not. It's a process. You know. So wow. And how did that
So
kind of
I went back just to let you know.
yeah.
I
Oh
went
yeah.
back to
Okay.
therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did go back, and it wasn't until I got my I was already it was my first job after I graduated with my social work degree, and you know I had health insurance.
Yeah.
It was like I had it before when I went to Medi-Cal as well. So I worked in Medi-Cal for some time, but that was during the time where I was doing my internship for grad school, and they wouldn't allow me to cut, you know, the days that I needed. They wanted me to stay 5 days, or eventually, by me being absent, I would get fired. So I had to quit my position from Medi-Cal. Um, so that's fine, and I didn't use, and that was about 6 months. So I didn't use my insurance. I didn't take that opportunity to because I didn't think that that was going to happen. You know, I thought that
Yeah.
I was just going to continue to work in Medi-Cal. I enjoyed the position there, and the money was great because it was the first time that I was earning, you know, I think before I spent a lot of time like in-home tutoring and also as a teacher assistant. So that was like, you know, $10 an hour salary back then. And then, you know, going to the Medical was like 17 or so.
Wow.
And so that was
Yeah.
a big,
Yeah.
economically, there was more I could do, and I was happy with it. So it wasn't until I got my first job with my degree that I was able to, like, you know, really focus and go to therapy. A different journey that I'm like, you know what? I need it again. I know I need it. I know I've needed it since I was a kid, to be honest. But
Yeah.
I never went. And the first one wasn't good enough. So I was like, and here I am again in my life, and I was like, I'm about to fail again. Not again, but this is the first time where, like, this is a professional environment, my job. I wasn't fulfilling my duties, and it was because of I still had all this stuff going on. My brother's stuff was still happening, you know,
Wow.
and I was still processing, you know, everything that was going on. So I remember I told my boss, I said, you know what, I need to take some time off, and I was honest, and I told him what was going on, and he said, that's okay, I'll support whatever you need. Take time off. And so I went to Kaiser. So Kaiser was that's the location that I went for therapy. And yeah, it was a lot better. It was a lot more enriching. Changed my life, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, there's no way to describe it. You know, there's more. It's hard to really put it all into words,
Well,
but really, it was the greatest thing that ever happened in my life.
what was the difference?
Well, aside from the fact that there was no, you know, the session limit wasn't there,
Hmm.
they were listening to me, and there was a lot more feedback about myself. And the diagnosis was also shared with me as well. You
Hmm.
know, diagnosing yourself, you know, it's a little bit different. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard. But when you see it, it's almost like you wanna hear it from someone else. You know, this diagnosis. Some people, I'm pretty sure that there's some therapists out there that think that you know, oh, I've diagnosed myself. I know myself. You know, and
Yeah.
and it's like, no, it's different when you actually see the diagnosis from another mental health professional about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
more, how do you say, like, you learn more about yourself. It's enlightening in a certain
yeah.
way. It's frustrating, but it's enlightening.
Yeah. Because I think I don't know, man. I mean, I think as a therapist and even being in therapy, like and learning how to do therapy, of the skill of sitting with the person when they're talking, and not just trying to think about the answer, what they need, because the answer is not. I don't think it's is that important. I think the most important thing is the journey, and I think people struggle to sit down to kind of sit with them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
sit, and go on that journey. It's like because if you go on that journey, you don't know where it's going to end. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know what the end result is. So it's scary for both of you. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if that makes sense, but just
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like
it does make sense, and I think I was as I'm thinking right now. The other thing that was helpful was that she actually, the therapist that I went to Kaiser, she looked into my background and my environment that I grew up in,
mm,
and she was the one that I had identified that these things are not normal, that these things that you went through that is traumatic. You know?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I mean
everybody
it's
goes through that in the neighborhood. You know, the hear the gunshots and stuff like that. You think that's normal, and then someone tells you that's not normal, and that has impacts on you.
yeah,
Yeah, and so it was. She taught me a lot about myself. You know, it was very, and for me, the gender didn't matter either, whether it was a male
mm,
or a female. You know, that
yeah,
wasn't an issue for me. It was just, can you listen to me, really? You know, it's like, are you gonna understand me?
yeah, yeah. And I think my experiences with therapists has been kind of rocky at at best. I just had one for about it, I think about a year now, and it was a guy it's a guy therapist, and I think for like for me and my needs, I think that's what I needed. And the therapist before, when I first started, I think it was just a couple sessions, but at that moment, like that's what I needed. I kind of needed to get like just sometimes you just need to get like a mind shift. You know what I mean? It was just a lot of stuff going on, and then he just kind of gave me like a lot of information just to kind of change my thought pattern, and that was good for that at that time. You know, it was just kind of like okay, I'm good. But then I don't know. It's been kind of rocky. It's been rocky, but I think it's a journey where you have to figure out who's the best fit for you. Because sometimes gender matters, it doesn't. Sometimes you know how many years and the type of therapy really matters. And but I wanted to ask you, do you think with your brother, is that what kind of got you in the path of becoming a therapist?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was so I remember it was like 11th grade, and in senior year you had to select. There was an elective, and I remember they had psychology as an elective, and I took that class because I was very interested in figuring out, understanding my brother, and
Hmm.
understanding what he at that time it was OCD that he was suffering from, and it was severe because it was getting to the point where it wasn't just him doing these repetitions and obsessions. It was him wanting the family members to also be coordinated with his obsessions as well. So the taking steps back wasn't just him. It was also can you two also do that while I take my steps back? You know?
Mm.
Yeah, it was getting pervasive where he wanted the family members to also be, you know,
Wow, we lost you again. Man, so good.
all these things going on.
Okay. Wow. Sorry, you were out there for like 5 seconds,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I mean, wow. And how? So bringing
So
everything
at that
together.
time, so going back to your question, yes, that was the key. That was what ended up, bringing me into the field.
Wow, man, that's how's your relationship now? Oh, sorry. Hello.
You there?
Yeah. Yep. Sorry. How is your relationship now?
Oh, it's actually really good with my brother. He made tremendous progress. I had never in my life would have thought that, you know, that he would be stable. Let's be honest. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. So he's doing. So you guys have a better relationship now, and uh, what would you say to somebody that's kind of going through the similar experience where they have you know have a family member that has a mental illness, and like what advice would you give?
Well, it's gonna sound cliche, but the idea of not giving up, really, because I did give up. I gave up on my brother because I lost hope. When you lose hope, you lose a lot. But it wasn't me. that kept it moving. It was my mom, actually. My mom was the one that didn't lose hope, and she pushed forward, and she made some changes to even the environment that we lived in. She was the one that said, you know what, maybe we should move into the different environment, because this was a home in South LA that I grew up in, and my dad had purchased a home in Santa Ana, which is, the hood of Orange County, but my mom wanted to try it
Yeah.
out, and so definitely that was a significant thing, is getting out of that environment where the access to drugs was there, and also the history of the abuse that my brother endured was also in that house in Los Angeles.
Mm.
So there was a lot of things where, like, just switching the environment into a better one was really helpful. In addition to, of course, all the times that he had gone in and psychotropic medication that he was taking, all that combined. So it was a lot of factors, but I would say that the one that put the nail in the coffin in the end was my mom making that decision to move to Santa Ana from Los Angeles.
Wow, dude, that's wow. Yeah, no, I'm just kind of in awe about it. Like, 'cause once you think, once I hear schizophrenia and all these diagnoses, like you think that it's gonna last forever. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what, before I got into this field, that's what I thought. But you're saying that, what, how do you not like get into that anger, bitter place? You know what I'm saying? Because I think you kind of talked about that before. Even that's kind of like how the irritability. How were you able to kind of recognize that?
Recognize the irritability that I was feeling, you mean?
Yeah, because I think with guys we tend to go in these like rabbit holes, right? Where and then we often do that with our wives. You know what I mean? Like, and we isolate and we think she's the worst person in the world, and we think of all the messed up things that she's done. And so I think in your case and what you were talking about, you could have easily did that with your brother, and easily just said, "I'm done with this dude. Like, that's it." Like, what kept you kind of from not going there?
I did go there, as well. But,
Yeah.
I think that one of the things that held me back was, I would say, family values has a big part of it. And growing up, the values that my mom and my dad both instilled in the family, and how much fun we had together as well growing up. See, because he didn't have his mental illness until he was about like 18, 17 or 18 or so. And so before that, I mean, it was like the typical, like a brother. I mean, it was like there's five of us. Okay, so he's my oldest one, and I'm the youngest one in the family.
Wow.
Yeah, and in between there's three of them, and so we all like have these very fond memories growing up. And I looked up to him, and he loved art, and he was into graffiti, and I would admire his artwork, and so there was this love and the values that my parents had instilled that out of this house and just leave them the way they are. Like, this is not okay. And so there was this kind of push, like, it's gonna happen. So this attitude of being a fighter and not giving up.
Wow, man. It's just thank you for sharing, man. I mean, that's not we don't talk about these things, right? We don't talk about a family member's mental illness and the impact on us, and how it affects us, and how we don't get how not to get into that ugly rabbit hole, of like, I'm done with you, this is it, and I'm pretty sure you might have even said that, and who would
Oh
blame
yeah,
you, right?
yeah. I had my points. Yeah, where I was like, I want to hurt him.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
just by you recognizing that, by you being able to kind of identify that, that's pretty incredible, because a lot of times we don't recognize. We kind of just say, it's we'll get over it, it's whatever, and then we start drinking and stuff, and then then we go to blows, man. So yeah, I mean, I think what we talked about earlier too is just kind of like identifying like the symptoms, identifying like, how am I feeling, checking in with yourself. did you do did you do any meditation at that time? Did you do any like just reflection? Like, how were you able to get that kind of perspective?
One of the things that, because I didn't get like the full treatment until I was already like 28 or so,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was when I went to Kaiser. And so really, all before that, there's other, how do you say, ways of coping. I'll give you the PG-13 ones, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that's for another discussion.
Yeah.
But one of the things that really helped out was exercising.
Mm.
So I had an uncle who was like, who we admire a lot, and he lived with us. And my uncle would lift weights, and he would work out. He would like,
Mm.
he's the type of guy that would be like running on the train tracks and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, so he was like, he was pumped, and we were like, we thought he was the strongest dude on the planet,
Yeah.
and we loved him. And so I would see him work out, and I started to also become interested in that. And so he left his weightlifting bench, the belt, and the weights in the backyard. And so I started to use them, and I realized that it felt so relaxing, and at the
Yeah.
same time empowering and strength, and it gave me motivation and energy. It was almost like an antidepressant right there that my
Yeah.
uncle left me. And so
Yeah.
that was really one of the biggest things that had helped me throughout all those years to manage the stress.
Yeah, I think we undervalue the importance of exercise and working out. Like it's a huge deal. Like if we were talking earlier before, it's like look, and I with the whole like uh corona thing and not being able to go out, it's like, man, I need to go ahead and start walking, at least start walking, start some exercise, because I'm not feeling as much energy. I'm feeling a little more irritable. Like I need to start doing stuff. And those little interventions, how much they help, and starting off with the basic stuff, make sure you're showering, make sure you go for that walk. But starting off there, I think that's very important, just kind of like way to start.
Yeah, there's a meme that I saw that someone posted, and I think it said something like exercise is the most underrated antidepressant. And I was like, I love it. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just, and I was doing some reading, some research and stuff. I got a book on that, and it's important, man. They're saying like, for if you're feeling those symptoms of depression, you should at least go 3 times a week, 45 minutes, just walking. Just that's how
Yeah.
you start. And I was like, really, like, it's like that makes sense. Like it's just simple,
Right?
and you start off from there, and then like if you're not feeling better, you're not good enough, then you go on to more things. So yeah, man, I just want to thank you, man, for sharing, and such a great story, and beneficial for a lot of people that are going through, not just your brother with the mental illness, but also with growing up in that environment, and how once we leave, and how different it is out there, right?
Yeah, it
So
was. Looking back, incredibly hard. But I think like even before we started, talking, I had mentioned how just going back to this attitude of gratefulness. I'm really grateful for a lot of things. And that attitude of just not giving up. That was I still have that. So
yeah,
I'm very like if I put my mind to it, like we're gonna do it. It's like
yeah.
yeah, with some of the goals I have, even if it's brutal, even if it's like, if I have to sacrifice a lot, we're gonna get it done.
Yeah, because if you come out of that environment, man, you definitely have that toughness in you. You know what I mean? And being able to kind of analyze, okay, everybody's going this way, and I need to go that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you kind of get that awareness of like what's going on. It's like, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that because I know where that's going to lead, and I know like to achieve a goal, like, man, it's going to be a lot of obstacles, but to be able to graduate from college and grad school and get licensed, like that didn't even seem like the hardest part for me, you know. It was more like navigating through everything, man.
Sometimes people forget that those really negative experiences that you have in life, when you overcome them, or when you go through those and you come out, with better, a stronger person. There's that resilience that really builds that ability to bounce back. And
Yeah,
sometimes you say, you stress out about these small things right now, like, oh, my Wi-Fi router, is out.
yeah.
And you gotta remember, man, like I've been through much worse, in my life.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why, and this is the reason why I started this podcast, and I started interviewing people, is because I felt that there was like a narrative kind of going on of like, oh, this is trauma and this is bad, and oh, this is like, no, I think once you overcome things, just like when you're a baby and you start walking, right? You're not going to just get up and start sprinting across the living room, right? You're going to fall, you're going to get up, you're going to learn how to walk, and you get stronger and stronger, right? I think it's the same thing when we're facing tough challenges, you
Yeah,
know?
I think a lot of people, like I've talked to like a lot of my cousins, and some of the ones that were involved in gang life and thug life, in Compton. And one of the things that I see that they have a hard time seeing is their own strengths, their
Yeah.
own gifts, like the things that they're good at. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, primo, like you're really good at this, like.
Yeah.
And some of them, they don't. It's hard for them to see that, you know.
It it really is, man. I mean, I can name so many people that are smarter than me, that were more athletic, that were more like,
They have talent,
just
they have
just
potential. Yeah.
super talent, man. And that it's just what you kind of see. You see a lot of people that's I don't know, man, that I guess that haven't succeeded at that point. You know what I'm saying? And you think that, oh well, nobody's gonna do it. That's just the way we are. That's just the way things are. We're not gonna be able to get our we're not gonna be able to go to college. We don't do that. And it's just no, man. Like it's a crazy, it's a different way to thinking, but super talented people that just weren't able to kind of like get that confidence because I know they had it.
Well, we look at the environment, and some of that doesn't help, where the talent was there, but the environment didn't provide for those, things to even shine. So then, they're dealing with this whole other mess, of issues that kind of take away from the strengths that they had. And some of my cousins that now that they're older, they know they're realizing some of those strengths, and to me that's wonderful that that's being realized.
Yeah, and I think I don't know why I'm thinking of just like genuine praise, like the importance of that, of not
Yeah.
trying to BS somebody and like, oh, that's a great art thing. No, it's not. Like if it's not, it's not, because they need to understand like, but you're really good at this. You know what I'm saying? What your words have, like you're just not, just saying, oh, that's awesome. Like, no, you need to be like, no, Matt, it's okay, but I need you to, I think if you try harder, man, you can get even better. Something where you're not BSing somebody and they can tell. Because I remember like as a kid, man, it was a lot of this kind of like, you're awesome, that's great. It's like, no, it's not. Sometimes you need to say like it's bad.
I'm into like building each other up as men, in a very genuine fashion, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you want to be encouraging, absolutely, but you also want to give when you give somebody praise, like your word means something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's okay to say, I think you need to work harder on that, man. I think if you work hard on that, it'll be so much better. Like that's fine. You don't want to say that's terrible, right? But you want to
Don't bring them down either.
Yeah,
Although that's very
yeah,
easy to do,
yeah. You don't want to do that, but you want to be like, but just be honest, what they're really good at, so you have some value in what you say. So I don't know, man, but I think we can talk about this for a long time. I think there's definitely more discussions that we'll have together, because because we're not, guys, especially Latino guys, we're not talking about this type of stuff, on what we've been through and how those environmental factors, come into play when you get older, and when you get older, when you start developing into an adult. So I think there's some more conversations there, man.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, man.
definitely.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for your time, man. And we'll definitely do this again, man. And
Awesome. Thanks for
thanks,
inviting
man.
me. It's
Abs-
yeah, first timer.
yeah, man. I know it's just awesome. I really appreciate it, bro.
Awesome. Thanks.